Welcome to the Romanian Reaver channel and my first impressions of Stellaris 2.0 and its DLC Apocalypse, which technically speaking is more of an expansion than a DLC, and Stellaris 2.0 is a major rework. Before I get going though, standard disclaimer as usual, I've been provided with a review copy of the DLC for the purposes of doing this first impressions video. Now, that aside, the DLC itself should be launched at the moment of this video becoming available and will be priced around 20 euros or 20 US dollars if I'm not mistaken. So quite a hefty amount. For that amount you get Titans and Colossus class ships. Think if you've played the base game with the Leviathan's DLC, the Dreadnought type enemy. That's the Titan, and the Colossus is basically, as we can see in the corner here, a planet killer, more or less. There are more types of Colossuses. Some are actual Death Stars, others are more esoteric, so to say. I haven't played around much with those, or at all to be honest, because the game kept kicking my ass. Adapting the new mechanics in 2.0 is quite interesting, but versus the original version of the game 1.0 back in what was it now, 2016? Yeah, the game has undergone a major revolution with this expansion, and it's gone personally from a must look at during a sale to a must buy during a sale, personally speaking. Now, before we get to anything, too much into anything, pretty much standard, nothing's changed around here. The real changes come when you go in the play area. Now this guy and this is humanoid DLC area, so don't bother with it. However, the Apocalypse DLC itself does add a couple of extra things here and there. Like for example the Post-Apocalyptic trait for your empire, which basically means you nuke the shit out of your home planet before going FTO and you survived. That adds in a trait to your species called Survivor, i.e. you managed to actually survive being idiots, this one here. This buffs up your 2 moral habitability to 70%, it ain't perfect, and it buffs up your leader lifespan. To be honest, the leader lifespan is kind of interesting. The 2 moral habitability, not so much. When you select, for example, a preferred planet type, basically what your planet was before you nuked the fuck out of it, you select the other type of planet you can basically go to. This is counterbalanced by the fact the 2 morals are hard to start off on. Besides that, we also have, if I'm not mistaken, Agrarian Idol, which requires, if I'm not mistaken, Fanatic Pacifist, and Barbarian Despoilers. Played around a wee bit with this, it's so and so really, not really a pacifist, so I wasn't feeling the playstyle. Barbarian Despoilers are the exact opposite, they're kind of a wee bit too aggressive, so to say. Besides that, let's just head back. This area has seen a massive rework, in my opinion. Adding the randomized options, quite nice. Advanced starts everything customizable, gives you a nice degree of not so much customizability, but control over your starting conditions, and these also work quite well, especially when you don't want to have to deal with, what were they, unbidden too early on in the game. Now, overall, the most differences, or the highest level of difference you'll have in your game via the mechanics themselves, are via abandoned gateways, wormhole pairs, and hyperlane density. Think of these ways as your basic general locomotion through space and time. Hyperlane density 1 to 0.75 times is basically choke point city. Going to 50% or 0.5 times will make things kind of interesting, because basically every system's connected by one, maybe two other hyperlanes. So you get choked off quite easily, and it depends on your playstyle if you like that sort of thing or not. Me personally, 1 to 75 is best. Abandoned gateways are basically your teleportation, go anywhere you want. These are available very late game overall. They require a rare technology, and they require repairs. And the repairs are about 4,000 minerals if I'm not mistaken. Wormhole pairs require a rare technology, but afterwards they're immediately available. However, they're point to point. Abandoned gateways are gateway to another gateway. I don't know if that's repaired gateway or not. I never actually played around with that much. What about this? If it's to a wrecked gateway, that kind of would possibly make sense, because you think it's the generation mechanisms that are borked or inactive, so to say. Now I've played about 15 to 20 hours. I don't know where the time went, but yeah. One point I would like to mention, the marauding empires. In the past you could get very unlucky and spawn right in the ass end of a fallen empire, and if you're really unlucky and they were militaristic, they would constantly fuck with you basically. That's marauding empires. All the time, every time. They have about 3 systems, and they'll send a 5k fleet down your ass pretty much whenever they feel like it. The development logs from the developers themselves before that point, the one focused on marauding empire, specified that you could actually pay tribute or something like that, but I don't think that's always available. It's either locked by certain preconditions, i.e. being enough of a fighter, or maybe it's just me being a xenophobic asswit. Now, overall, this is how the map will look at about 1 time. Hyperlane density. The wormholes and the gates themselves tend to be quite rare at 1 times. Depends on you if you want to actually have a lot of running about. Now this state here, I stumbled across the Horizon Signal event from one of the free DLCs if I'm not mistaken. So I went about and poked with it, and yeah, there are still a wee bit of a glitch here and there. This being the original dwarf species, and this being the one after you get the whole retrovirus event. Besides that, there's been a lot of tweaks here and there. Like for example, the fleet manager gives you a nice amount of workability. You can customize your your fleets per se in composition quite to a nice degree. So basically you just select this, and if your fleet's lacking, you just go reinforce, 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 and it'll build exactly what you want. The ship designer's seen a massive revolution. Gone are the days where you have to stack reactors. Now they're just here, and you can stack reactor boosters, which boost the amount of power, but it isn't so much required as it was before 2.0. Before 2.0 you could have about a quarter of your ship being reactors. Do note, however, that having not to deal with reactors isn't as good as it sounds at first. Oops, I misloaded. 1 sec. I'll continue on, because basically some components no longer have any real spaces in them, or have very few of them, like extra reactor boosters or stuff like that. Let's go with Uplift a Go-Go. One of the ones I actually managed to survive quite a lot in. Oh, and if I'm not mistaken, either this one or the other game one of the other 3 to 4 games I've played long term had a wormhole that was going straight into a think these guys. Yeah, I think so. Where's that wormhole? There it is. Yep, there it is. And that links directly here, which is in the middle of Fallen Empire territory. And as you guys can see, I was playing more or less a choke point game here. Not much issues. Well, except when this guy starts declaring war and shit goes sideways. Funnily enough, this guy went pacifist, then he went militarist, then went pacifist again. It's kind of weird. Luckily, I didn't have to deal with Marauders too much, because the Marauders had a wee bit too much to deal with the Swarm. However, there's another Marauder enclave here, and they are a pain to deal with. And in terms of, do we get visibility? Yes, we do. In terms of fleet power, yeah, they are very dangerous. These ships generally don't leave the Ancestral Glory class. They tend to stick within the star system. These guys usually go walkabout, cruisers and lighter. And they're basically pirate types. Oh yeah, speaking of pirates, gone are the days when pirates would pop out once, pop out one base and one fleet, and then get promptly shit stomped and thrown out. Now they continually respawn, and they get more powerful, and you really don't want to have surprises like I did at one point. Like I'm like, oh yeah, another pirate fleet spawned in. Okay, I'll just get my fleet ready for them. Yeah, no, that didn't work out too well. It spawned a small 70 to 80 firepower base, and then it spawned a pirate galleon with 5,000 firepower. Yeah, that was a nice end to that particular run. Another thing, the whole way you build stuff has changed quite a wee bit in terms of space. Planetary, not so much. Planets retain the ability to build civilian ships, while your military ships are built off of the star bases themselves. Also, gone are the days when you would destroy a star base before attacking a planet. Now pretty much neutralize it. The moment you neutralize it, it remains in space. It needs vast amounts of repair, but it's still intact. So basically, if your invasion works out quite well enough, I suppose you'd get it. At least that worked in a certain degree over here with me, but not with any, not here, not this one. One of the systems that had a base, but not, yikes, not a colony. I don't know if taking over the colony or destroying it impacts the base, but if you take the system, you take the base, basically. What else is there to talk about? In terms of Unity mechanics, they've added in a couple of extra here and there, just to spice things up. Where was that? Traditions. There it is. They've added in a couple of extra in here, like for example nihilistic acquisition, which gives you raiding capacity, which I'd imagine you'd want as a despoiling barbarian or thereabouts, and quite a few other things. The 2.0 also put in a couple of the basic Ascension perks in the base game, so you at least have some degree of Unity mechanics within the base game without having the I forget which one it was. Utopia, that was it. Without having the Utopia DLC. Like for example, you won't get Transcendence, but you will get something like, I'd imagine, either Defender of the Galaxy or the Technocracy one, which is always nice to have. Technological Ascendancy. Technocracy was a type of government, sorry. But yeah, overall, the base game itself has gone straight up into keep an eye on it for sale territory, because it would be a must buy in that case for anybody who's any sort of strategy fan. Like literally you could be playing Civilization or Rome Total War or something like that. This would be a fair amount in your general area of play, because, well, before it was mostly just mashing around ships and playing around with sides. And I can also bake in some combat tactics here and there via ship combat preferences. Like artillery will sit way the hell back in the formation, while the pickets and the swarms will tend to be going more towards forward, picking off fighters and generally making a mess of things. Now, as for the Apocalypse DLC / expansion, it buffs up the general feel of the game, it adds in some extra stuff. It also adds in the problem with the whole Marauders, the possibility of you basically, you know, let's say, where is it? This is Soul, and you might get really freaking unlucky and these three here to have Marauders. If that's the case, well, that'll be a interesting game to play in terms of a challenge. A forced one planet gameplay session. The Titans and the Colossi will probably pose a interesting solution to Leviathan based issues, and will also give you a tactical option in fleet battles, particularly with the added combat roles. What else? The Ascendancy perks, so and so. The extra traditions, personally, I really like the two moral playability, because it does give you more or less two general branches of preference, and having two morals is an interesting one, because I've had it a couple of times in the 4 games I've played where actual atomic age civilizations have nuked the shit out of themselves. Literally, the last one, if I'm not mistaken, before this one, before the last one, so the second last one, let me just check. Is it? It probably is this one. I've played a lot, a freaking lot, 20 hours in about 3 days. You guys can imagine how interesting it is to poke around now. Yeah, this is the one. This one used to have a civilization right here, and well, yeah. I went with an army here ready to invade. Why is it saying it must be colonized to invade it? I click on it. Oh shit, they nuked the fuck out of themselves. Would have been, you know, interesting to get a pop-up or something, you know, because I do have a base here, so I would have been probably able to spot the whole event. But yeah, aside from that, the Apocalypse DLC itself, if the game itself for you, the base one, is a must-buy in your preference, then the Apocalypse DLC goes with it. It's a must-buy as well. If you're just interested in both, well, in the base game on sale, same thing goes for the Apocalypse. It's basically equal. It'll buff up your gameplay quite nicely, and it's a nice complement to the Utopia expansion / DLC. Thank you for watching, or more precisely surviving up until this point, because you guys know the editing's kinda interesting and my voice has a melodic tone to it. If you like what you saw, feel free to hit the subscribe button, like button. It does help out the statistics of the channel, gets more visible, you know, stuff like that. And to be honest, at one point I would like to actually make this a job, so I can do better content with better quality, more games, more coverage, you know, stuff like that. Take care.